entire season for gambling on a game that he wasn't even a part of, but Deshaun Watson was only suspended for 6 games for having 24 civil lawsuits brought forth against him.
Hey, that is facts though. How you gonna suspend Calvin Ridley for a whole season for gambling? And then you get Deshaun Watson 6 games for potentially sexual misconduct with 24 people. That's crazy. I ain't gonna lie to you. Deshaun Watson has been officially suspended from the NFL, man. Hey, this is crazy. I know it's gonna be a matter of time, man, especially with all the things they've been collecting over the past year, man. Listen, let's go ahead and check it out, bro. Let's see how they came to the final decision.
Did you find her attractive?
That wasn't my intention, sir.
Was she a massage therapist?
Yes, sir.
Trained?
I'm not sure, sir.
Why you would post something on Instagram suggesting that you were in New York City when you were instead in Houston getting a massage.
Advice of my lawyer, I assert my rights under the 5th Amendment.
Today's a day that has been
Tough.
a year and a half in the making. From the very beginning, when Deshaun Watson demanded a trade from the Houston Texans after a very tumultuous season with the Houston Texans, then a few weeks later, we got the plot twist of a lifetime. Multiple cases being levied against Deshaun Watson for seeing way too freaking many masseuses. And we've been waiting to see what the punishment for that will be. Originally, Deshaun Watson missed all of last season, and it looks like it could potentially be more as Judge Sue Robinson issues her final suspension today. A year and a half ago, Deshaun Watson demanded a trade from the Houston Texans, but as a result of the cases that were brought forth against him, it made trading Deshaun Watson a little challenging.
Yeah,
I mean,
very.
he was really close to getting traded to the Miami Dolphins this past year during the trade deadline, but the Miami Dolphins wanted all of the charges dropped before they decided to give up 3 first-round picks to trade for Deshaun Watson.
That's smart.
As a result, since none of the charges were dropped against Deshaun Watson or none of the cases were settled against Deshaun Watson, bear in mind at the time Deshaun Watson was still pending potential criminal charges during the trade deadline. No team ended up trading for him during the trade deadline, and this became a storyline heading into the offseason. After all, Deshaun Watson is a pretty freaking good quarterback. I mean,
I don't know about top 5. That's a stretch, but all right.
Football, he completed 70% of his passes, threw for 4,823
stupid
passing
stats,
yards,
I ain't gonna
33
lie.
touchdowns,
Disgusting
and
stats.
7 interceptions. This was the year that he lost DeAndre Hopkins, so the football ability is clearly there, but the question was, would Deshaun Watson even be able to get on field the moment that he is able to play again? He took all of last year off in order to focus on this aspect of his life. And ultimately, we found out a few months ago that all of the criminal charges brought forth against Deshaun Watson were dropped. Not the civil lawsuits, but the criminal charges. As a result, you saw a huge frenzy. Multiple teams were trying to trade for Deshaun Watson, primarily the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, and Carolina Panthers, before the Cleveland Browns stepped up to the plate with the craziest contract that I have ever seen in NFL history. Not only did they give up significant draft compensation to get Deshaun Watson, but they signed him to a fully
5 years, $230 million. That's an NBA contract.
Even if Deshaun Watson gets suspended today, he is still going to get paid. And ultimately, I believe that's a huge reason
guaranteed
why he went to
too.
Cleveland. I don't think any team was willing to pay Deshaun Watson that type of money. And it's nothing against those other teams. That's a huge risk to be taking. But the problem is, shortly after that, we had more civil cases and more civil cases and more civil cases brought forth against Deshaun Watson.
Tough, man.
Ultimately, a few weeks ago, the NFL did 2 things. One was say that they were angling for an indefinite suspension against Deshaun Watson, and 2, they brought in a judge, Sue Robinson, who technically was retired and is now being the judge for this case, to give an official ruling for how long Deshaun Watson should be suspended. So it's important to pay attention to a few things here, because the NFL was very calculated in the way they did this, and there's no better person to explain why than Albert Breer. So Albert Breer said on Twitter that those involved have expected a suspension of less than a year, but it remains a little unpredictable. This is Sue Robinson's call and her first NFL case. If it is less than a year, then Roger Goodell will have an interesting call to make.
Wow.
One thing to add here, and I think this is very, very important, all along, the NFL's been aggressive in getting the word out that they sought out at least a year. They did that at the risk of angering Sue Robinson. Why? Say the case isn't going their way. Then they can say, we tried. which is the relevant PR element of all this.
Wow.
So I said this from the very beginning. Why would the NFL come out and say,
hey, we want to suspend Deshaun Watson for at least longer than a year, but hey, it's up to this judge to decide.
because that way, if Deshaun Watson gets suspended from 4 games to 8 games, Roger Goodell could show up and say, it was out of my hands. We hired a professional to sentence Deshaun Watson for a specific amount of games. Now, what's even crazier about
Hold
this
up
is
now.
the NFLPA even put out a joint statement on Deshaun Watson, the impending arbitration decision. So there's a lot of PR, marketing, posturing going on, so the NFL could kind of save face. Check this out. In advance of Judge Robinson's decision, we wanted to reiterate the facts of this proceeding. First, we have fully cooperated with every NFL inquiry and provided the NFL with the most comprehensive set of information for any personal conduct policy investigation. A former federal judge appointed jointly by the NFLPA and NFL held a full and fair hearing, has read thousands of pages of investigative documents, and reviewed arguments from both sides impartially. Every player, owner, business partner, and stakeholder deserves to know that our process is legitimate and will not be tarnished based on the whims of the league office. This is why, regardless of her decision, Deshaun and the NFLPA will stand by her ruling, and we call on the NFL to do the same. So this morning when I woke up, we got an official ruling from former federal judge Sue L. Robinson. So first reported by Adam Schefter, but Ian Rappaport also includes a lot of interesting information in addition to Tom Pelissaro and Albert Breer and Dove Kleiman. Yeah, we have a whole super team bringing you guys information this morning. Former federal judge Sue L. Robinson has found that Deshaun Watson violated the personal conduct policy and has suspended him for 6 games. Right away, you can tell why the NFL decided to give a bunch of disclaimers prior to this ruling being announced, because you know people are going to be upset about the fact that Calvin Ridley was suspended for an entire season for gambling on a game that he wasn't even a part of, but Deshaun Watson was only suspended for 6 games for having 24 civil lawsuits brought forth against him.
Hey, that is facts though. How you gonna suspend Calvin Ridley for a whole season for gambling, but then you give Deshaun Watson 6 games for potentially sexual misconduct with 24 people, allegedly? Now that's crazy. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's a whole lot of conspiracy going on as I'm picking up. I don't know, bro. It's a whole lot of conspiracy going on right now, man. Maybe he's gonna get into it. He already led it a little bit. I want to see where this is going to go, man. I want to hear his conspiracy side to what he thinks. Let me see.
NFL's rationale in just a second. Let me just give you guys the entire sentencing. So Schefter continues to say that Deshaun Watson was suspended 6 games. He was not fined. Tom Pelissaro mentions that Judge Sue L. Robinson's decision also says Deshaun Watson must get all of his massage therapy from club therapists per source.
Why?
I know I shouldn't laugh, but I'm glad that information was also thrown in there. I'm just trying to imagine like a judge sentencing something like that. I don't know. In my head, I thought it was kind of funny. So here's the crazy part. Deshaun Watson's side doesn't seem happy about this. And the NFL still hasn't given their word about whether or not they're going to appeal this decision. According to Ian Rappaport, the NFLPA has said that they will accept this decision and they will not appeal. And there's been no word from the NFL so far. Now, the NFL has 3 days to decide to appeal Deshaun Watson's 6-game suspension. I could see the NFL appealing Deshaun Watson's suspension just for the sake of marketing and PR, just so they could say we did everything we possibly could so we could get the maximum punishment against Deshaun Watson. But the former judge that we hired decided to suspend him for 6 games, so we can't really do much about this. Our hands are tied in this situation. We hired a professional, and this is what her ruling was. This was by far the best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns, because Rapshi mentions what games Deshaun Watson is going to miss. And don't get me wrong, maybe once football season starts, every team is going to be in a different place, but at least my perception against most of these teams are they're rebuilding. He's not necessarily missing many games against contending teams. You can make an argument for 1, maybe 2 contending teams, because he's going to miss games against the Carolina Panthers, the New York Jets, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the New England
all rebuilding.
Patriots. The only contending team in that list is obviously the New York Jets, which would be a shame for Deshaun Watson to miss. But for the most part, man, these are games that I feel like Jacoby Brissett could go out and actually win. win some of them. I mean, especially when you have Kareem Hunt and Nick freaking Chubb in your backfield, I'm fairly confident that Jacoby Brissett could pull off some W's, Deshaun Watson could come back against the Baltimore Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns could get rolling. Now, of course, if Jacoby Brissett loses all of these games, then obviously the Cleveland Browns are going to be in a difficult situation. But if you could at least hold off the Pittsburgh Steelers, beat the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, I think the Cleveland Browns will be in great shape for when Deshaun Watson returns.
Yeah, I think so too. I ain't gonna lie. He should be able to win those games.
Practicing with the team currently, well, Tom Pelissaro actually mentions that Browns QB Deshaun Watson is in the building and is expected to practice today, per source. Players suspended for less than a year are generally permitted to participate in all activities through the preseason.
Okay.
Now we get to the rationale for the suspension. And this is what Judge Sue L. Robinson had to say about Deshaun Watson's behavior, saying that his pattern of behavior was egregious, but notes that the behavior was non-violent sexual conduct, and explaining the decision to suspend him for 6 games. Albert Breer gives you some other examples, and I actually tweeted a whole list of previous examples for players that have been suspended for 6 games or less or more. Albert Breer mentions that Browns QB Deshaun Watson's 6-game suspension mirrors past penalties for Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott and ex-Steelers QB Ben Roethlisberger. Watson's case, like Elliott's and Roethlisberger's, lacked criminal charges. And if you want an additional list for this type of stuff, man, I tweeted it out on my Twitter. I mean, Tom Brady, 4 games for maybe being generally aware that a football may have been the permitted PSI.
Yeah, I forgot about
raising a hand on his fiance was 2 games.
That was only 2 games? That boy put hands on her. Whoa.
6 games. There's a whole list if you want to go in and compare it to previous suspensions. But it seems like the vast majority of people are very upset about this, because Dove Kleiman makes a very interesting point. Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins received a 6-game suspension for a PED violation.
Wow.
Deshaun Watson was facing over 24 sexual misconduct lawsuits. Josh Gordon was suspended for 78 games by the NFL for smoking weed. Calvin Ridley was suspended for at least 1 full season for making a bet that his team will win. Vincent Jackson was suspended for 3 games because of unlicensed driving. And Plaxico Burress got suspended for 4 games for shooting his freaking leg.
Bro, how you get suspended for shooting your own leg? Now that's wild, bro.
Gave us a little
but yo, hold up, bro.
Actually went down, saying
that's
that
wild.
20 plus women accused Deshaun Watson in civil lawsuits. The NFL brought just 5 cases to Judge Robinson. NFL argued for a full season suspension. Robinson hands down 6 games. The NFL could appeal and potentially add games. The NFLPA could then look to sue in court. This isn't over. Now here's the bizarre part. According to Diana Rossini, apparently Deshaun Watson's side isn't happy with this. I spoke to sources close to quarterback Deshaun Watson who believe the 6-game suspension is too much. They stand by his claim that he did not do anything wrong. However, they do accept this was a fair process with a neutral party hearing the case and making the decision. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's side is going to come out and say that. I mean, no matter how long the suspension was, that's just PR.
You better be happy with them 6 games. NFL trying to give you a full season.
I think the suspension is fair. It's very difficult to say, because personally, I'm coming from a place where I also acknowledge the fact that Deshaun Watson didn't play the last year in the NFL as a result of his situation, and possibly because he didn't want to play for the Houston Texans anymore. I also acknowledge the fact that the NFL is the most inconsistent league whenever it comes to handing down punishment, as you're going to see on my Twitter account and as we've mentioned in previous examples. So it's really hard for me to say whether or not this is a fair punishment, because I'm not necessarily an expert in regards to this field. I could say that this was by far the best job the NFL could have done to avoid potential backlash, which is finding a scapegoat in Sue Robinson and say,
hey, she laid the ruling, it's not on us.
But at the end of the day, this was the best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Of him being suspended indefinitely or for like a year. Imagine suspending Deshaun Watson for over a year and him getting paid guaranteed money. At least in this scenario, there is still a chance for Deshaun Watson to come back and potentially lead the Cleveland Browns to a successful season.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. Take them 6 games and run with it. Hey, bro, let me know down in the comments, is this suspension necessary? Is 6 games too little or too much, man? In my opinion, take them 6 games and run with it. They trying to suspend you for the whole year, bro. But what I will say though, 78 days for smoking weed for Josh Gordon and all the other ones, the 6 games for less. Bro, getting suspended 6 games for shooting your own self in the leg is crazy. But out of all of these, I mean, 24 against women. Yes, I think that's above a lot of those cases. You know, suspended for unlicensed driving for what, 4 days or something like that. Yeah, 24 women is crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you, but let me know down in the comments, man. I feel like he possibly could have got more, but they gave him 6 games. That worked out perfectly fine for them. Let me know down in the comments what you think, though. But I hope y'all boys enjoyed this video. If you watch this right now, appreciate you. See you in the next video, bro.